We speak about digital society and human rights in a digital society, and it's very important democracy and rule of law state in a digital society. This will be the topic of my presentation. What I want to say is that in Europe, the Europe of the EU, Europe is concerned about what digital society, I will later give definition, wants and demands that it requires a certain constitution, digital constitution, because some legislation about the figures and this is some kind of maybe exaggeration because human dignity remains as is. But I can give examples what are the challenges that we see in a digital society. In the European Parliament in 2016, December 2016, they started a discussion about the digital constitution. And should we actually speak about digital rights? In Italy too, the declaration of the European Parliament about digital rights, the Italian Parliament supported this topic, and certainly there is a certain degree of concern with regards to what is this digital society, what it stands for, and all these changes. Moreover, within the EU, several presentations were delivered before the European Parliament or the European Commission on the digital society. At certain times, this is something I will always discuss too, for the most part. In 2004, they request a report of virgin technologies in the future of the European society, about the convergence of technologies that seem to be hailing the future of the European society, and the subsequent reports on about enhancing human well-being and about police measures because of digital technologies. Well, in Spain, quite recently, I apologize, late last December, Spain published a new constitutional law on the fundamental human rights. And it has a dedicated section on the issues that is seen as guarantees of digital rights. I will later tell you what this law is about, but as an explanation, amongst other things, what was said in what that section said about the right to switch off, to rather sign out of or the right to digital will, if you will, or the right to private life and privacy, and where we have biolocation of the digital technologies, the right to sign out, and sometimes companies try to control at any time. Even at early dawn, they keep sending you emails or say SMS messages to work that tomorrow they are waiting for you for this and that, although actually these working relations are over. You are now on your private time. And this is some kind of harassment, digital harassment by the company about humans. And what happens if he's passed away and his profile is still posted somewhere online? So a number of questions about digital technology that is related to it, and about this law, I have several reservations to make, but I'm quoting the law here, and I'm quoting this section, guarantees of digital rights, and they are the ones they are reflecting concern that the other countries within the EU, say in Brazil, it has the right on, in Brazil, and it's also something that is really provoking our concern. What is this new civil society? What is it telling us? I'll put it this way. First and foremost, in a digital society, it seems to us that it has to do firstly with the right to personal life. Maybe the right to honor, but in reality it has to do with a much broader range of questions. To start with, what is the digital society? What does it stand for? Sometimes we just think it's all about internet, and indeed, internet is a kind instrument of the civil society, but it does not boil down to internet alone, and it's broader than internet. I would rather put it this way. Digital society is a society built upon digitization, as somebody say, of information. Digitization of certain symbols to just transform the information. For the software, I would much rather speak about this digital society. This is a definition. This is a society built upon the convergence of technologies. Why that? Because convergence mainly happens in nanotechnology. This is a technology where microscopic minimal elements, which can, for example, be transplanted into human brain, they are nanotechnology and information technology or cognitive science. All these technologies, some of them seem totally unrelated with the digital world, but they are related in point of fact. Because right now the scanner that is used when you are admitted to a clinic, to a hospital, to see whether you've got some disease or not, it's based upon digitalization. This is a digitized software program. For example, when we do X-rays or a CT scan, I don't know to which extent the present here have got this experience, but my generation, let me put it this way, I still remember the time when we did X-rays on this, like we would, yes, recording music. Now it's all digitized, and the electronic microscope is also digitalized. Our telephones are also digitalized. They're based upon digital technology. And all of this led once again and expanded because of the biotechnological, because of the discovery of human genome. All this without technology would have made it impossible. And what are the implications for all of us? May I quote two examples which we may need? The first project, I'm not really keeping the time, but I do hope I'm not really going beyond it. Some Spanish person that for example, Brain Project. Brain, it was published in Nature in November 2016. There was an article unpublished, 3 ethical priorities on the study of the human brain. This is the study, the biologist, the researcher who has a number of specialties at the same time, and he leads a project where he thought he would map the human brain with the impulses, which exactly are the locations that there's knowledge, memory, and so on, whatever. And via the electrodes, which will be later equipped with microchips, it may decipher what people think and what people want. For example, the implication of this technology, we saw laboratory experiences. A person with impaired brain cannot, for example, move. This is tetraplegic. He's tetraplegic, but he can take decisions. And using these decisions, using an exoskeleton, and he says, okay, I would like to have some water. He takes a decision and exoskeleton moves. because this is the brain that is switched on towards the computer and to the drug, which allows him to give this. This is all great for humans with these diseases, for sure, and experiments were made on this. But there are other further implications for that. Some of them, but what if somebody has been attacked by a hacker? But what worries us are two things. If a healthy person says, okay, I want to have a microchip and through internet I will be switched on, logged on to the cloud, and artificial intelligence will take care of me and will tell me which decisions I have to make. Shall I travel to Madrid or elsewhere? So this is some kind of boosted man, and this is philosophy of transhumanism, a post-humanism that poses several questions to us. Can we allow this? Shall we have people first-rate citizens and second-rate citizens? Certainly it will not happen overnight, but it's not going to happen in the 22nd century either. It's a kind of challenge. Can we allow this to happen? What about equality? Everyone should have the right to this. Can we switch off? So the questions are very serious as to how the human society which we represent here, it goes way beyond what we've been thinking. How transcendent this is. Stefan Nordetan, director of the Agency for Developing Data in Italy. This was somebody who, this declaration by the Italian parliament, he presented it about digital laws, digital rights, and he presented yet another case that really brings us closer to digital society. This is actually a real case, a pair of lesbians who got married, or if you will, married one another, each law by the Italian law, and a couple of lesbians, nothing special at that. They're both deaf and mute, and they want to have a child. And they want also to be a deaf and mute child. Biologically, is this possible? Biologically, yes. You can identify which, for example, so that this child on this defect, for them it is not a great defect. The lawyers in this couple, there is another case yet in the United States, they are saying gestures is a language, we have the right to speak this language, and then hence we have an ethical problem. You can do it through biotechnological discoveries, but can we allow this as a society? What kind of answer can we give to this question? So when I speak about digital society, this is a society that somehow seems to be destroying some barriers that we could not control. Some serve for our good and for the human dignity, and others search to damage humans, and this is some kind of collective issues. What shall we say about this? So, we suppose that this seems to highlight the challenges that this digital society poses before us. But whatever, we have to live under those conditions. We must exploit it in every way, but we must carefully look about the negative implications of all this. We must use it in a positive manner, but we should also look at the risks. We must run ahead and feel the problems that we see in some way. On 10 or 15 years, they will be collective. So in this way, I'm coming forward to other problems of digital society that have to do with the rule of law. The society of the transhumanism, post-humanism, that has to do with the fundamental right for equality. What do we think about this? S-man is a technological doping or what? Or it is that because of the chip will be better than others, others are more capable, whereas others are not.
There are other questions too. We have spoken about the right to privacy and the right to privacy of personal data. The Spanish Constitution stipulates that the law limits the use of computer and information technologies for the purposes of gathering personal data. I think that there is some forefeeling in this text of the Spanish Constitution of the 1970s, which is to say that there is some inherent risk together with the great perspective of the information technologies. Let me also remind you that the constitutional texts usually do not have a very explicit terms. For instance, the Constitution does not stipulate that humans should not be using knives to stick others. All the Constitution says is that that the Criminal Code says that people should not harm each other, or must not harm each other. So when we speak about this limiting of information technologies, we understand that there is some premonition. It's like in Goethe's poem when a wizard's apprentice starts to be using a broom and the broom gets out of control. In the same vein, computer technologies have sort of a double side to it, as pretty much everything else. And it may be that the digital society in such cases starts to dominate us. Indeed, the technologies as they existed suddenly the technology gets out of our control and starts to govern us. This age-old legend is at times becoming more relevant. And let me just quote one more time this right to privacy. And this spills out into the social sphere and the practice of democracy. We have seen it on the example of the U.S. Presidential elections when Cambridge Analytica was in essence an actor in the overall drama of the U.S. elections, giving out tickets for cinema theaters and movies, representatives and participants in the Facebook groups, and about 200,000 Americans agreed to participate. And as a result, in the record data of this 200,000 persons, Cambridge Analytica learned about some information on the likes and dislikes of about 60 million Americans. So what they think about politics, football, and on the basis of it, through the artificial intelligence technologies, this profile of these 60 million Americans was in a way constructed, which in a way helped messages to be tweeted favorably positioning the candidate, Mr. Trump, and having very different kinds of messages with respect to Mrs. Clinton. So we're seeing that some of these messages were used as instruments in this robotic assault, if I may call it so. And there was quite a current of information related to the candidates. So, unfortunately, democracy may be compromised. There is a risk of compromising democracy through the digital technologies, as much as there has been through other technologies. Or the reason why I'm saying this is that we have to realize that there is no just one side to every technology. So that requires some deliberation as to how electronic media and information technologies are used. So it's about practice rather than theory. And here I come to the level of a critique that was published in a journal with respect to the European Standing Order, because to us Europe is often is sometimes an example of wrong moves, and this is something that the Spanish law also stipulates. Several days ago, about a week ago, the Constitutional Court of Spain was considering this Spanish law. What is it that allows the European Standing Order of 2016 with respect to processing personal data? Are companies allowed to profile or to collect data concerning political preferences of citizens as published in social networks? Up until recently, such collection of data on political preferences was forbidden, because it was believed that some political parties may use this data, and political opinions were always outlawed to collect. It has been a case for quite a few decades, and recently, quite recently, this became legitimate. The Spanish law that I was quoting to allowed for such data to be collected. We protested this, some of us, the jurists, and the Constitutional Court had a judgment to have a constitutional ban on such collection of personal data related to political preferences. Yet another topic is about personal data and the development of certain profiles. Not only through common social networks, but also through augmented information technologies, such as the artificial intelligence that we're seeing now. Collection of data, the results of and of course we have enormous core of statistical data related to people's well-being. Let us take the example of diabetes. Being able to collect massive statistical data on patients with diabetes may allow to work out better medical solutions and indeed treatment protocols. That's the advantage. Now, there's always the second side to it. The young people who were students in a marginalized precinct in either Madrid or in Moscow, with certain family backgrounds, with certain views and problems that exist. All of these people, young people, when they grow up and pretend to have certain jobs, and the machine which is the AI engine, would produce a profile which would say that this person would be 30% unlikely to qualify for the job. And in this way, the AI will, in a way, substitute a human decision, and so mass processing of such data may lead to HR decisions. However, there is the European lawmakers say that it is impossible to take decisions related to make decisions related to, say, jobs market only on the basis of AI analysis. But when we say, let me take the example of locomotive, or what is the locomotive here? What is equality? And equality is the right to be equal before the law, quite irrespective of our religious denominations, and there is a new reason for discrimination. Unfortunately, when could a person who has an 80% to achieve success be discriminated on the basis that he, by definition, has an 80% chance of success? Thus, this would be in a detriment to those who have a lower degree of success. So this is, of course, a very sophisticated ethical issue, but we have to be able to distinguish between the categories. I don't know how much more time do I have, and I may be sort of winding up myself a little bit more. I can go on for quite a while talking about these things. They're very delicate issues, these are. One other important matter, which is also related to collective rights, and I'm talking about democracy. For instance, about the market and the competitiveness. Competition is a matter of major importance. For competition to exist, to avoid abuse of advantages, what world are we seeing to emerge? We can see that in the Wall Street, in New York, the first top 10 companies in the stock exchange are the high-tech companies, Facebook, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and other giants of high-tech. Why? They have curbed the banks. Why is it that the cement or construction builders who were at the top are no longer taking their space? It is because the new wealth is not about gold or oil, but about data. And the society recognizes that, and the stock exchange is a reflection of this reality. We may even say that we are in a way disturbing the picture, distorting the picture of the market. Some companies failed to stand up for the competition with Amazon. Amazon can sell us better things that some giga markets or hypermarkets, and I'm sure that Russia has been embraced by this advance of electronic trade. So it may be that we are surrendering the might and power to these major companies. And as we see it, the democracy itself is at risk because this economic dominance may grow into social threat and this may also be related to competition, democracy, the market, and even some individual rights. And I've already, and at this I'm just about to wrap up. The Spanish laws have introduced some sections on guaranteeing the rights of digital businesses. And this is important because it has to deal with the consequences of a life in the digital society, what I call we can even speak about a digital world, not just a digital society, but the most important characteristic of such a society is that the nature is a part of this world. The nature is right here, and the digital world. We were not born in a digital world like we were born in the bosom of the nature. So we created this digital world. So let me just stop myself short and call this a digital society rather than the digital world. And I think that the lawmakers of tomorrow will face increasing pressure from the concern, resulting from the concern of the information technologies. The Spanish law today is not particularly explicit with respect to the digital technologies. There are different rights for digital education, digital will making, disconnection from the digital networks and so on and so forth. But my main reproach to this section of the Spanish law is that we primarily speak about the internet-related digital society. Article 1 stipulates the rights and freedoms enshrined in the Constitution and in the international treaties, which a signatory is Spain, is related to a full degree to the internet-related spheres. But we have to realize that the internet is not a problem. It's just a protocol. It's more about the AI. It's more about the use of the technologies related to the biological procedures and biomedical even behavior. And a Nature article of November of 2016 is in particular saying that is raising a question. If we could use these technologies to, say, combatants in the armed conflicts, or to the drones, or the unmanned vehicles. Sanders, the American philosopher, spoke about the unmanned transportation vehicles, about the moral implications of such technologies. If a tram follows a track, and if a tram kills, say, children who were playing on the track, or such a tram may veer off, and where should this unmanned tram go? Should it change the arrow and go and kill just the workers who have been working on the sidetrack, or kill the children were in front of the unmanned vehicle? And what is it that we are making this unmanned vehicle do, which actually is an obedient machine that has to follow a certain protocol? So when this unmanned vehicle sees some persons on the track, the tram has to make a terrible choice. The programmers, software developers are saying that this is absurd, we have nothing to do with it. However, such challenges may arise. It is a problem of enormous questions that we are bound to face in medicine, in biotechnologies, in transportation, in all algorithm-related ventures. Could an algorithm be unbiased? Could an algorithm be involved? Could an algorithm be delegated with the responsibility of hiring people based on their rating and their ability to qualify for a particular job? Could an algorithm be used for biomedical purposes in, say, the technologies of in vitro fertilization? Are we supposed to have that some people should have advantages before others with respect to their abilities? All of these questions and many more are in no way tackled in this section 10 of the quoted Spanish law. So, some of the problems that we see in this digital society, should the very notion of rights and liberties be in any way reformed, augmented, amended, or this should be left totally inviolable, and these should in no way be ever amended with respect to the digital technologies? Should we and how should we avert the risks? Thank you so much.